CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy. After 2 years and more than 80 episodes of our Conversations on African Philanthropy, we are introducing a series of conversations that are theme-specific, program-focused, and at times recorded at the request of those at the coalface of implementation in order to document and tell their experiences and stories. In the first of such series, we focus on the Zimbabwe Alliance Initiative, whose grants, convenings, capacity building, and technical support have fostered a vibrant civil society, where partners were empowered to design innovative and coordinated responses that amplify the voices of those marginalized, influence the capacity of citizens to mobilize around national critical issues, engage with policymakers, and built regional and international solidarity in pursuit of a better Zimbabwe. Formed in 2010 to strengthen the role of civil society in influencing Zimbabwe's transition to democracy, the Alliance has evolved over several phases to what it is today. An initiative of several partners, Zimbabwe Alliance is a story of resilience, innovation, dedication, and passion expressed somewhat beautifully in some of the least expected places and ways.
Welcome to yet another episode of our Conversations on African Philanthropy with me, Moyo. As you already know, on this part of the segment, we are looking at ZimAlliance, a collaborative donor platform, but also a re-granting facility that came into place in response to the political and economic crisis that gripped Zimbabwe around 2007 and 2008, leading to the government of national unity, elections in 2013, and the subsequent epochs of transitions that have engulfed the country. Part of the solution that civil society brought to the table were to be involved in the several aspects: constitution writing, human rights monitoring, governance, among others. I'm really excited to be joined by Samuel Gwenzi, who is the founder, but also serves on the board of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Monitors platform. Sam, welcome.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much. And I was saying to you that as I think back, I realized that it's been several years since you and I met. We were very young then, very young then. Yeah. And that was a time when ZimAlliance and Trust Africa had just rented an office in one of the houses around here. But it's more than 10 years now, and we are here, and we're using this opportunity to take stock of the different partners that Trust Africa has worked with. And you are one of the people that has been associated with Trust Africa from the very beginning, from the small office to where they are now. One part as a student leader and coordinator at ZINASU, and then we'll come to the other parts. Maybe let's start talking about your involvement personally, but also as part of the student leadership, and how you worked jointly with others and part of Trust Africa to respond to the developments in the country at the time that you were at the leadership of the student union.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. I think ZimAlliance and ZINASU, which happens to be the institution that I used to work with during the period of the formation of ZimAlliance in 2008 and 9, during the constitutional making process, and equally addressing the political crisis that engulfed the country then. As the coordinator of ZINASU, ZimAlliance was key in the institutional building, because it was also a period when there were factional aspects within the organization, where there were some who were advocating for a pro-constitutional making process, and the other one who were advocating for an anti-constitutional making process under the National Constitutional Assembly, and the other one being facilitated by the Crisis Coalition. But during that particular phase, we managed to harmonize the institution, and ZimAlliance was there in terms of building a bridge among the factional members of the organization so that the student movement remain as the key voice of students during that period. So the facilitation equally helps to have a conversation of convergence among different actors within the student movement. But far more, this was internal, so it was critical in the institutional rebuilding of ZINASU then. But we were also critical in terms of uh, the uh, the constitutional making process in the country, where the student component was essential in terms of advocacy, in terms of monitoring the COPAC process itself. And this is where multiple partners, including the collectiveness of ZimAlliance and Trust Africa, being key in the programming aspects of the student movement. Then I would also want to speak in terms of some of the key programs equally involves the female students who were at the lower end in terms of political activism. And Trust Africa had some support that they had to give us during that particular phase to ensure that there is female student participation in the political processes in the country and within the organizations in us.
Yeah. And then, of course, after that, you then went on to establish the Zimbabwe Human Rights Monitors platform. What gap were you responding to and filling? And what are the objectives of the organization? Then after that, we can come back to talk about the programs of the platform.
Yeah. Basically, the human rights discourse in the country is also following the digital footprints. The emergence of social media, the emergence of artificial intelligence, key platform where there's an open media platform in terms of being given by the social media, and the moving away from the traditional monitoring mechanism. People want evidence, people want to deal with disinformation and stuff like that. So we thought we have to use the energy of the young who are technologically savvy to push the gap of addressing this particular gap of having technology as a critical component using what we consider as digital disruption in human rights monitoring. So that's the level of extent where we thought the kind of addressing on human rights issues at the day needs a more different approach, where we use, like what I have already alluded, new technologies where we can monitor using also the methodologies of new technologies. So that's where actually the aspect of human rights monitoring came about. But it was also not just in terms of just monitoring, but we also had that there is a disconnect among new activists in the human rights discourse and the old kind of generation of human rights, and mostly the non-high political human rights actors were neglected, either through the solidarity platforms or their voice also not being given access. And we felt we can be the gap to give these new actors a platform and a chance to to speak out on key human rights issues. I think basically more was to do with monitoring of the human rights situation. You find students being arrested, but you also find in some communities where people are forced to move out from, to be evicted in those kind of communities because there is a commercial entity that needs to do business there. And in most circumstances, such particular issues are not given that particular attention. And young women and men who are within the age group of 35 who had not made their names will not be given that space and chance to speak out. So those are some of the kind of gaps that we find, and we felt we have to penetrate in such areas.
So one would then ask, how are you organized? What are the different programs or activities that you engage, and how has it been so far?
It has been a difficult journey, considering that there are already existing players within the democracy and human rights discourse, and equally in the monitoring. But far more, we have managed to be efficient within this particular space, because we have managed to harness our work using the digital aspect, where it's mostly to do with online work. You can organize youth on issues to do with human rights using the digital spaces that are there, either using Twitter spaces or using other various spaces to harness the various voices of young people. Also, we have also managed to bring the media kind of aspect in terms of having some episodes that we have the kind of student decide, where we give a platform for students to speak out on critical issues where they may not be given spaces on traditional big media spaces, but we give them on our space, and it has been growing. Then we also have got those young activists who also need to be articulate and give solution to the various discourse, whether it's socio-economic and political rights. We also give them their space using our Into Zimbabwe kind of space. And it has been also been getting that kind of traction, and we reach a broader society of individuals. We also now and again bring different also experts in these particular fields or policy players. But mostly we tend to target the mostly underprivileged and who don't have got access and a voice.
I mean, part of what I saw in the work that you do is that you also bring a lot of disruptive technologies in the space of monitoring of human rights. But you also bring huge experience yourself, having served as a board member of ZESNI, but also from ZINASU and many other affiliations. So I'll be more interested to hear, what drives you as an individual to end up in this space, but also how you are utilizing the experience that you have gained over the years to actually bear on the work that you do.
I think I'm driven to change my own personal circumstances first, but also to change the community that we live in. I think there is a big opportunity for us to live in a more democratic space, to live in and experience freedom as citizens and as Zimbabweans per se. And that is the key driving force to say I have to collectively contribute to the development of my country. And I think there's no one, we cannot outsource this responsibility as a responsible citizen to anyone else but ourselves. So I think I have to make that smaller contribution to build a better Zimbabwe, a better Africa, a better globe for all of us. So this is what drives me. But I think also my experience is that I come from a peasant background. It cannot just be called a peasant, but not that flashy or middle class background. My father is a teacher, and my mom is just a vendor. And that aspect of saying we can live a better life even within the smaller circumstance of what my parents get. and I wanted to do a little bit better, not just for myself,
Yeah.
but for the community
Yeah.
that I live in. And I think that's also the driving force to say I am a change that I would want to see
Yeah.
to the community.
Yeah.
It has also its own successes, but I also had some of the
Yeah.
greatest tribulations in that you may have some pushback from the state,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
supposed to guarantee certain of those rights to
Yeah.
equality, right to equal opportunities, right to employment, right to education,
Yeah.
which are essential to a country and a generation that needs to live
Yeah.
a better Zimbabwe or a better life.
Yeah.
As a,
Yeah. So obviously, as an institution that uses technology, but also disruptive tools for that matter, but also within a space of human rights monitoring, there's definitely barriers.
yeah.
Let's talk about some of those barriers that you have encountered, but also how you have mitigated them.
The first thing is legislation.
Yeah.
There is some, I forgot the terminology, the legal terminology, but the country has got some other legislations that has been enacted,
Yeah.
which seeks to stifle free expression. And that actually becomes a barrier to issues of
Yeah.
human rights,
Yeah.
which in some instances, especially if they are political rights, they are considered as a taboo or as criminal
Yeah.
by our state. Then I also see the other barriers is the cost of internet. The internet costs also are a hindrance because nearly 60% of the population are actually young people
Yeah.
who rely more on technology and internet as a space of free expression
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
others, which also tends to stifle equally our operation as an institution.
Yeah.
Yeah, because data is highly expensive, and also you see the country is also having serious challenges in terms of electricity,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it makes it also difficult because it also affects both data and the various devices that comes with technology
Yeah.
and internet,
Yeah.
and making it also difficult in terms of getting real-time information, real-time programming, and that's some of the challenges that
Yeah.
we face in the sector.
Yeah. And how wide are you able to deploy your technologies within the country? Is it within Harare? Is it the entire country? Let's just look at your geographic footprint.
Our geographic footprint has been more urban-centered.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also difficult to reach out to the
Yeah.
rural,
Yeah.
but we have been trying to enter into the rural base
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of issues of environment and climate
Yeah.
justice,
Yeah.
where I highlighted the issue of probably where we went to highlight issues in Chirezi on
Yeah.
issues of
Yeah.
eviction. Our volunteers were on the ground and giving us real-time
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
information. But our geographical end has been more of urban within the
Yeah.
various cities and towns
Yeah.
in the country.
Yeah.
It has been difficult to penetrate within
Yeah.
the rural.
Because of infrastructure
Sure.
and other things as well.
Yeah.
But more often people think of human rights only in relation to elections. But actually, if you listen to what you are saying and many others, you will find that human rights can be in spaces of land,
Yeah.
could be in climate change, etc. And I just want to take your reflections on how you have seen maybe more prominence or even violations of human rights based on your reports or your work. Is it more election related episodes, or is actually just right across? It's just that elections just bring this attention.
I think it's broad
Yeah.
because on a day-to-day basis, the aspect of water,
Yeah.
if we want to look at the social service delivery within the city
Yeah.
are some of the elements that affect people on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Then you can also look at the issue of also on that service delivery aspect, where we have got a high rise of diarrhea cases
Yeah.
in the country, cholera cases, which happens to also has got a health implication,
Yeah.
where the health rights of individuals are also human rights. So I think day to day there has been issues of human rights violation,
Yeah.
which the state is supposed to guarantee to the
Yeah.
people. And probably when we look at the state, it's not just a government and the ruling part, but we can also have our own local authorities that are supposed to guarantee such particular rights to the citizens per se. And we have seen that there has been a neglect in terms of guaranteeing that right. I think it emanates that there is no accountability that happens within the country. The voice of the residents has also been curtailed. They cannot speak out, and various issues are raised to say we don't have money, or there is corruption per se, which also affect the different rights that we need to talk about. But I find that during election time, political rights tends to be rampant in the country per se, because of the stakes at hand, and also because I believe there is no rule of law in the country. The law is subjective to the whims of the ruling party per se, and that's where you would find many rights of citizens being
And then your association with ZimAlliance is now at the level of the platform, but also maybe at an individual level. And there's and there have been these processes that were established. For example, the Citizens Manifesto, the Citizens Cabinet, among others. Help us get a sense of how you have been associated as a platform with ZimAlliance and some of the participation that you're involved in, especially in the Citizens Manifesto processes.
Yeah, I think we have been involved both in the initial stages of the Citizen Manifesto, where we would have to galvanize the various voices of people throughout the country, and we're given the various groups. And I think at first they were the 10 cardinal pillars, which also helped to create the Citizen Cabinet. And I think we had made our contribution to the pillar that deals with leadership. In terms, we were saying that I think it was the first cardinal on the need of servant leadership. And in the process, ZimAlliance managed to ensure that there is capacity building, especially among ourselves as social justice activists, in terms of building our capacity in that process, and also in terms of advocacy on critical issues, whether it's about the environment that we need to talk about, whether it's about issues of human rights, whether it's about the constitution, which are also key within the 10 cardinal pillars of the Citizen Manifesto. So we have been involved basically both in terms of formulation, the advocacy, implementation of that advocacy strategy, and as Zimbabwe Human Rights Monitors platform is critical as a stakeholder.
I see that there's a thread of leadership in your life, starting, of course, maybe even way before ZINASU, to most of the processes that you've been involved in. And I also saw that at one point you were also part of the council here in Harare. How important is the leadership, and are there any reflections that you have on leadership? And I have other questions that I'm going to ask, but I just want us to start with that. Maybe reflection on your own leadership journey, but anything that you have learned out of that.
Yeah, I think it's key to go through some leadership school. Some
Yeah.
of it happens through your interaction with either the institution that you are with.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be a deliberate move to build leadership, especially in the country, to equally understand you are stuck and you become a policy maker, probably in council, and you don't understand the social service issues, which happens to be the center of work for the city. And you are thrust in that. So the leadership school that we went through these various steps of being in ZINASU, are now manifesting more at a national level as a policy player, and in my case, as a council. And I think I always believe that there's need of mentorship. There's need of constant relearning. And I was given the portfolio as the chairperson of the business committee, which runs around 400 million of its budget, and running all the strategic business unit of the city. And you are now thrust to make essential decisions.
Right.
And what it means is, when I was given that responsibility, the first thing is to understand the weaknesses that probably have been into the social democracy and development work. And right now I have to build, I have to understand some business kind of knowledge, so that I will be able to drive the organization. So I think there's aspect of looking at gaps of individuals and trying to make all the capacity of our individuals. And now it's a time where many young people are now getting into strategic positions. And it's actually key to look at the various gaps and be able to help such young talent on itself to also be to understand aspect of leadership. I find it, I've been having a conversation with some other Norwegian partners that we get along. When I went to Norway, they wanted to start a scholarship program. And I was telling them that it's actually difficult to lead an organization where a leader is elected in the national executive of ZINASU. Then he becomes a pauper, and you neglect such a person. It also has got a reflection in the organization.
Right.
So I was trying to sell out the idea of building the capacity of leaders. And that's where, when the student that risk scholarship also emanates, its where, what you call it, how they recruit, especially from Zimbabwe. And right now we are sending more people, but I've also made a recommendation to say most of the people that are given these scholarships tend to be within either developmental work, political science. Recently there's also been environment, but we need also to be deliberate to take people within the STEM, and probably they will come back and get into strategic positions in the country.
And of course, I think STEM is what obviously one of the most important areas to focus on at the moment, given I think the multiple challenges and complexities of the world. We actually have very few people who are specialists in science, maths, and all of these subjects. But the other thing that strikes me as I have these conversations is the extent to which the link between civil society and politics. More often, we tend to want to draw a line between the two. In this country, for example, it's always made to be a problem. If you are in civil society, you are already immediately branded the opposition. And yet, it's a natural flaw that any individual should be able to move from whatever sector into politics or from politics into business, etc. In your time, in the council, did you get a sense that there was linkages between, people in council, people in politics, and people in civil society without really having to worry about political affiliations?
I find that there's a gap
Yeah.
because those who are in civic society
Yeah.
would try to look as if they are independent
Yeah.
away from
Yeah.
key political
Yeah.
processes.
Yeah.
But I want to look at it from a point where you want to empower a community.
Yeah.
There are a lot of resources out there within the civic society organization.
Yeah.
There are equally more opportunities probably in council,
Yeah.
which the civic society can galvanize on
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of empowerment.
Yeah.
There are venting spaces, which brings about $1 million economy.
Yeah.
And there is also resources within some other civic actors, but they cannot relate.
Yeah.
But I think when I went into council, I tried to become that kind of synergy to say some of these things are not political. They are equally economic opportunities that can help an institution, a civic institution, where currently we are having donor fatigue in many of the spaces. But probably if they have got these kind of activities that are more sustainable, because for you to get into the economic space, you need land and per se. And council has got that possibility of giving land. Then there's also some legislations for them to be effective to suit the economic empowerment of the day. There's need of that kind of lobbying and relationship that exists within the civic society and probably council. So I find that there is that synergy, but people try to seem as if it's criminal to join a political part of a choice. Because I think even civic actors have got a political home per se. Whether those who believe in the environment, then they can say it's an environmental party. Or those that believe in constitution, they can say it's a constitutional party. And so I think there's that particular synergy between civic actors, but here it has been criminalized.
So let's come back to the platform. What do you see as the next frontiers for the platform? And in your case, as a digital platform using disruptive technologies, we are always looking what is the next big bait. So in your case, what is the next big bait for the platform?
I think we need to move with speed so that artificial intelligence is a critical element in terms of the work of human rights and also probably the work of the organization. So I think our work now is to push up a bigger research and development plan that seeks to try to work on how best we can harness on issues of artificial intelligence. And I think that's the biggest bet currently.
Right.
And some other people, they're saying both, because you can use it not just as a tool to get funding from donors, but it can also be sustained. The good part about digital disruption is that you can also monetize them to ensure that they support the work that you do. But they need to have that kind of research to say, how can we monetize our work to ensure that it's sustainable to work on itself, whilst we are also trying to harness the new technologies at the moment.
I think I spoke to ZimRights at some point, and they were talking about some of their action zones, and one of them is around monitors on the ground that monitor also human rights violations. I'm keen to hear about your partnership strategy as the platform, both locally but also internationally, because my view is that if you are working in the space of human rights and also technologies, you're already working at a global level, basically.
I think our case is that we are a volunteer kind of organization with few resources, and we mostly benefit from young intellectuals who want to get experience within the human rights discourse. So our strategy mostly is to ensure that at least we work with already established institutions. But that depends if they want to give us that particular space. I think there may also be a challenge in terms of competition, but I think we need to look at it more on collaborative kind of aspect. For us, we would want to benefit from the already existing. We have been reaching out because we have got a different niche altogether, which can also help also the very established institution. But we are also willing to learn and be housed by those that have already walked the way. So our strategy has also been engaging. We have been engaging also even ZimRights, we have been trying to engage them. We have also been engaging Amnesty International in our work. We have worked with Magamba on a project which we called ZISO. That was an election project. We were the main implementers and they were the funders because we have been harnessing that kind of technology. And in terms of reach of members of volunteers that monitor the situation, if I wouldn't need to lie, I think if you look within the social media space, I think on many political cases, we are the first people to get reach of different rights violation. I think it's because of how we have managed to build a young generation of monitors throughout who may be in the media sector and giving us the relevant information, who may be within their different communities as working probably as a nurse in their particular area, but who are able to give us because we have tried to create that kind of rapport to get monitors, but also because of our history and relationship with ZINASU. Many of those who have left school and would want experience, we give them that particular platform, and that gives us the first edge to get monitors throughout the country.
And I want us to end by looking back again at ZimAlliance. I had said that it's a donor collaborative, and if resources were permitting for ZimAlliance to continue operating, with the benefit of experience and hindsight, what would be some of the ways in which you would advise them to approach the situation in Zimbabwe in terms of supporting the work that you and many others are doing? But secondly, how should donors basically fund in your work and that of others, especially in the context of the country?
I think we need to return back to community-based kind of organizing. Because that's where you first get, you are attached to what you do. So I think if we get back to those probably non-structured movements, non-structured societies, it may be residents associations, it may be freelance media players. I think we need to return back to the basics, at least those who are really affected, because I find that the kind of intervention in the country at the moment is not reaching the direct beneficiaries. It's more like some work of some sort. It's not driven by passion. It's not driven by the need of transformative change. So I think if we go directly to the affected communities, affected individuals, we can reap the bigger benefits of transformative change. And I think ZimAlliance need to also work on issues of human rights defenders in terms of the support system. because you look at it, it was, when it started ZimAlliance, it was on response to the political crisis in the country. And many of the frontline actors in the human rights area tends to suffer different challenges, and they are neglected. Some equally gets to a point where they lose their mind in the process. Some face different violations in the process, and they are neglected, and there is no proper framework of supporting such. And I think that's where ZimAlliance has to invest more in these particular areas, and also in community mobilizing, which has, I think, has been their critical area of work. They have to continue in that particular part.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you and actually connecting once again after several years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you. That was Sam Gwenzi, the founder of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Monitors platform. But as you also heard, somebody who has gone through student leadership all the way to being a counselor in Harare. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.